Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast, brought to you by Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate products and environments like never before using ultraviolet light. Whether you're ready to implement existing products or you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of the technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Technology for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank our other great FIAAA sponsors, including our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our great platinum sponsors, including Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Booster Digital Displays, revolutionize your game day experience. And Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We've got a really cool guest today, Jula Harrington. She is the Director of Player Development at Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about what she does, but full disclosure, there's also a little connection here. Jula is a proud graduate of Francis Parker School in San Diego. And their longtime football coach, John Morrison, a very good friend of mine. So, Jula, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share some stories about Coach Mo.
We will definitely get to that. But we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to high school, and, now, of course, you're, at Tufts. But talk a little bit about how you got into your current position as the Director of Player Development for a college football team.
Yeah, sounds good. So I was born and raised in San Diego, California, which is just about the best place you can grow up. I have an older brother who played football all through high school, had Coach Mo as a coach, and a younger brother as well. So I grew up in kind of a competitive household. I was lucky that they wanted me to play sports too. It wasn't like, oh, Jula plays with the dolls and we play with the balls outside. Like, I was welcomed into playing all of their games, which I think made me tough and made me understand kind of the world of sports a little bit better. But yeah, like Jake said, I went to Francis Parker School. It's a K through 12 school here, and my dad also teaches there. So it was a really great family environment. I got to go to school with my brothers and my dad every day, which was also fun and also kind of fueled my love for sports because we'd listen to San Diego Padres or the Chargers coming home in the afternoons, which is a great little memory from my childhood. Yeah. And like I said, my older brother played football. And when I was younger, I would go to all of the games, and it was a big thing at our school. It's a pretty small school. So everyone in the community liked to go to football games. And I remember watching and being like, it's so cool. It is just the best environment to be around, the Friday night lights, the excitement. And I always wanted to be a part of it, but I wasn't sure how, because back when I was in middle school, girls weren't really involved with football. And luckily, by the time I got to high school, there had been some managers for the team who were girls and had done a really amazing job and are still role models to me to this day. And our head coach, John Morrison, and one of the assistant coaches, DJ Walcott, knew that I was Gabe's little sister and knew that I had been loving Parker football since I was a little kid. And they asked me if I wanted to help out with the team. So I became a team manager. And actually, my senior year, I was a captain of the football team as a manager, which had never happened before and was and still is one of the greatest honors that I've ever had and something that I look back on so fondly.
Now, for our listeners, if you're not familiar with Francis Parker, again, it's an independent school, college prep, very high-powered academics, similar to my school in Tallahassee. But they're also extremely successful athletically in, we can probably say, most sports. So the football environment that Jula is talking about, again, very, very high-powered, very successful. How is that breaking in, those first years as manager? I think there's people outside of football. I think there's kind of a misconception that, the managers, the water boy and that sort of thing. But how were those first, that first year or two coming on board with the Parker football program?
It was a little bit scary, honestly, at first, because the first year I joined, I was a sophomore in high school. And luckily, I did know a lot of the older guys on the team, but it's still pretty intimidating being one of the only young women out on the field with big guys who are tackling each other and smell bad and sweat and everything. But really quickly, like our coaches realized that the managers for the team are not water girls. And that's one of the first things they tell the players on the first day of camp is they are not your water girls. They're not going to get you a towel when you want them to. Like they are integral parts of this team and you can't disrespect them just because you think that you're better than them because you're the one playing and they're the one not playing. So knowing that I had the coach's support and an understanding from the guys on the team that I was not just like a smaller role, but I was really an integral part of winning and success for the team made me feel a lot better. And especially as I got older, I realized like, oh, they're looking up to me. Like I'm not even playing, but my leadership and my respect to other teams and other coaches, like the younger kids are looking at that and looking to me as a role model, even though I'm a girl and I'm not even playing.
No, and that's such a great point, and I'm not surprised at all that John had that talk and had that philosophy in place. We did very much the same thing with our managers, whether they were boys or girls, and we had a number of girls. We would let the team know, hey, you all are playing for the school, they're playing for the team. These people, they're working for the team. They don't get to go out there and play. They're working, and they're here to make my job and these coaches' jobs and your job as a player much easier and more productive. So I think we had a real good system in place too. And again, I'm not surprised that John had the same thing. Well, fast forward maybe from those first couple of years, as a sophomore to now you're a senior. And again, for our listeners, very successful program, winning or playing for, the section or the state championship just about every year. So expectations were high. How was that, going into your senior season?
It was a little bit bittersweet. I mean, the whole senior year of high school is trying to just hold on to your last of everything. And especially at a school like Parker, which I'd been going to for 12 years and was a big family environment. Like a lot of the guys on the team I'd known since I was 4 years old. And the Morrison coaches have been second parents to me all my life. So I know my senior year, I was very intentional with everything because I wanted to remember things well. So there were times at practices, the sun would be setting over the field and everyone would be finishing up their last 100-yard sprints. And I'm sure it sucked for them, but I was like, oh, I'm going to miss this someday. And I've luckily been able to have some of those same experiences at Tufts. But I think especially senior year, that's when Matt Morrison, John Morrison's son, was the head coach by then. He was really invested in pushing me forward because I think he knew that this was something I wanted to continue to do. And he didn't want me to be complacent in my situation and just like handing out waters and helping out the team. He was really the one that pushed me to apply to be a captain for the team, which had never happened before. And we really once he decided that I was fit to be one, we had to really create that role on the spot because it was unprecedented. So it took a lot of time and energy, and especially as a senior in the fall, you're applying to schools, there's 100 things going on, but I would show up every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. for the coaches meeting and the captain's meeting. And that was something that really taught me, like, you can, there's always more. There's always more you can push towards and more you can try to reach, even if you're happy in your situation and you're already breaking barriers as is. You can keep doing a little bit more and keep working a little bit harder to get to that next step.
Oh, absolutely. Great stuff. As you were saying that, I was thinking about one of my favorite books. It's about, gosh, I don't know, 10, 12 years old now, but Good to Great. Have you ever read that?
I haven't.
I would suggest that strongly. Jim Collins, Good to Great. It talks about a business model, but they also have some great coaching references in there too. Let's go and fast forward one more time from high school senior to college freshman. How did that all come about and leading to your current position as the director of player development?
So I applied to Tufts early decision. And I got in. And so it was the only school I applied to, which I was very lucky to have a pretty calm college process. But I remember, like, less than a week after I got in, which was December of my senior year, I sent an email to Coach Jay Savetti, who was the head coach of the Tufts football team. And what's funny is I had actually met him before because my older brother played football at Colby College, which is a small liberal arts school in Maine. And we went to go visit him to watch a game when I was a sophomore in high school. And they happened to be playing Tufts. So my family was staying in a hotel, and it was the same hotel as the entire Tufts football team, which was bad for us because all of the food at the continental breakfast was gone by the time we got there. And Coach Savetti was one of the first people we saw in the lobby, and he was like, "I am so sorry that our team ate all the breakfast. We have a game today." And we're like, "We know, we're going to the game to root against you guys." And he was just the nicest guy. He was so nice to my family, so sorry that they ate all the food. And he looked at my little brother and I, and he was like, "Oh, you guys should be jumbos someday instead of Colby mules." And I was like 14, and I was like, whatever, like, what's a jumbo? And then fast forward, and then I'm suddenly a jumbo. And the jumbos are the mascot for Tufts, by the way. And so I sent him an email and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Gabe Harrington's little sister. I met you in Waterville, Maine at a Hampton Inn. I just got into Tufts and I've been working with my high school football team, and I would absolutely love to work for the Tufts team if you had a spot for me." And sent the email, forgot about it. And then a few months later, he emailed me back and was like, "Jula, oh my gosh, I remember you. Like, Gabe was one of our favorite people to play against. So nice. We would love to have you on the team. Let's communicate more as we get closer." And I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. So exciting." And then about a week before I started school, or orientation, I guess, one of the coaches reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, do you want to come to one of our first practices?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Like, just so I could check it out, see if it was something for me." So I went to the first practice. I was all ready. I was wearing like all my freshman Tufts gear. I was such a little kid, I felt like, that day. And they put me to work right away. They were like, "Okay, so you're going to hold the chains on the side." And I was like, "Okay, I got this." Like, I was so nervous. I was the only girl on the field out of like 100 people. And I was like, "I can do this." And one of the assistant coaches said, "Okay, you need to hold the chains. Do not move. We need it for the film, whatever." And I was like taking my job very seriously, holding them tight. And unfortunately, they did not tell me that if someone is running at you, you should drop the chains and move. So I think you can see where this is going. I was holding the chains on the side, and ball gets handed off to our running back. Linebacker's chasing him down. They're both barreling towards me, but I was like, I have to hold the chains. They need it for the film. So on my very first day of practice, I get tackled by our like first team all linebacker. Like, it was it was a mess. They both crashed into me and we went like rolling into the grass. But as Coach Savetti likes to remind everyone, I was the first person to stand up out of everyone that got tackled. And they hadn't even met me yet. The team hadn't even been introduced to me. So after that, practice was stopped and coach was like, hey everyone, this is our new manager, by the way. Even I had like blood dripping down my leg. Like it was a very memorable first day for all of us involved. But all of that to say, after that, things started going very smoothly. I was assimilated very quickly into the team, despite how nerve-wracking it was that I was the only girl really in the program. But the other managers were fantastic and completely took me under their wing. And now I'm going to be a senior and about to head into my last season. It's crazy.
That is a great story, and I gotta imagine it gave you some pretty good street cred, with the team as you bounce back up. Was there any nicknames handed out that day?
No, I think they were a little too nervous to do that because I was so new that they didn't want me to leave. They didn't want me to quit my job. So I think the way that they remind me is every time there's a group of parents or we have a banquet, our coach tells a story and then points at me and I have to stand up and bow, the whole 9 yards. But
no, that's classic banquet material right there.
Yep.
For our listeners, we are visiting with Jula Harrington, who is the Director of Player Development for the Tufts University football program. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our podcast sponsor, Violet Defense. Once again, we want to thank Violet Defense Technology, for sponsoring the Educational AD podcast. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products or you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of the technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience that you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense Technology for sponsoring the Educational AD podcast. Welcome back, everyone. We are visiting with Jula Harrington, the Director of Player Development for the Tufts University football team. Jula, you mentioned you're now a senior or going into your senior year with Tufts. You're no longer the manager. You are, in fact, the Director of Player Development. So give our listeners an idea of exactly, what that encompasses. What do you do in the role of Director of Player Development?
Yeah, of course. It's a really fun role because it is on and off the field. So lately in the past year, we haven't been able to get on the field as much. So that's actually when this position started to develop. Is like I have been working with our coaches, trainers, mental health counselors, and other on-campus communities to help our players get in the state of mind that they need to be in to be an athlete and be a good person and be a good student, which is something that Tufts football is really big on. Is you're an athlete for 4 years, but you can be a good person for life. So you want to give people tools to continue after college. So I have been helping arrange speakers for Tufts football. We've had some mental health people come in and talk about being in a pandemic and trying to keep your mind and your body healthy throughout that. I've connected us with different on-campus resources. We do sexual assault training every year so people can learn how to prevent it before it happens. And I work with our trainers to make sure that people are eating in ways that help their health and making sure they're stretching in the off time. I know that our boys love to lift as heavy as they can, but if they don't take care of their bodies after, it's not any good. So that is just like a little piece of what I've been doing in the past year, but another aspect of it is it's not only current player development, it's future players. I help a lot with our recruits that come onto campus. I give them tours, I talk with their families, I go and get lunch with them. It's one of my favorite parts of the job because people that I've met in recruiting eventually become players. So it's this really nice kind of linear path of meeting someone before they're a player and then getting to help their career as a student and an athlete once they are actually a student at Tufts.
Well, that is just so cool. A multifaceted, list of duties there. Looking back now, and again, you still have your senior year in front of you. Um, what's something that maybe an initiative or maybe just a different way of doing things? What's something that you've brought to the program in your time there that you are particularly proud of? What's something that we might call a best practice?
So I'm a psychology major, and that is not a super common major among football players. So I was able to bring in a lot of mental health training, both specifically like speakers that we get and professionals that talk about it, but also I'm at the point where our coaches trust me to give a talk about mental wellness and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to next season when we're able to implement some of those because I was just about to kickstart a program for our team about mental and physical health. And then the pandemic hit, which feels like a very common thing these days is something about to get started and then cut short. But I am really looking forward to over the summer working with our trainers and some mental health professionals on how to actually specify therapy and counseling for athletes because I think it's really different than a normal person or a normal student at a school. Student athletes have a lot of different balls they're juggling, and we need to make sure we address all of those when helping them out.
Oh, absolutely. That's, been a huge focus of educators and coaches, during the pandemic is, the mental health component. Since you went ahead and brought it up, um, for listeners, we're recording this on May 11th. So you have some context. We're well past that 1 year anniversary when COVID shut everything down, high school and college. But just real quickly, Jula, what was the response in Massachusetts, and maybe more specifically, how did Tufts University, the athletic department, the football team, how did you all respond, and how are you responding now to COVID?
Yeah, so last March, when everything shut down, one of the biggest things that our team tried to do is stay connected. And whether that was doing workouts together over Zoom or even just communicating with each other through a group me every day, our coach was checking in on people all the time because especially as athletes, a lot of your lives are structured because you have practice at this time and you need to finish homework within this hour and go eat. For the first time, like for a lot of them, their structure was completely gone. And one of the biggest things during that time was just making sure that people wouldn't fall into a bad place. And so communicating as much as possible was one of the biggest things that our team specifically did. And keeping hope. I mean, it was really hard when we got the call in the summer that football wasn't going to be happening. And leading up to that, I think we all had a little bit of hope that it could happen. And so that was a pretty rough week or so. And I think our coach let everyone be sad about that and didn't try to get everyone back excited right away because it was a really tough loss, especially for our seniors. But then after, we had some time to mull it over, then we were working on the next thing. What can we do in the fall that doesn't violate any Tufts protocols, any Massachusetts protocols? And so we ended up doing small practices, small workouts with position groups just to foster that community and to especially help our freshmen get the hang of things because they didn't get a normal start to their college experience. So we worked really hard to stay together through all of it.
Looking at that in a rear view mirror now and preparing for the 2021 season, How do you feel? Are you ready to go? Are you still playing catch up, or what's the outlook right now?
I think everyone is revving to go. Everyone is so excited. And especially this past spring, it's been nicer in Mass. Like people have been starting to do workouts outside again. And for the first time with the vaccine and everything, like there's hope for a season. And it's actually real hope this time instead of last year when it was kind of a dream for a while. Um, but some of our spring sports at Tufts have been able to play. So I know a lot of our guys have gone out to watch baseball, lacrosse games, just to kind of feel that athletic spirit again. And I think they're so excited to get out there and play again.
Oh, and there's no surprise with that. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
all the best as you guys hit the turf this summer and fall. A couple more questions before we wrap up. You started out at Francis Parker as manager, continued that at Tufts, and now going into your senior year, you're the director of player development, and you mentioned you're a psychology major. What are your plans for next year? Are you going to be able to stay on at Tufts in this role? Is this something you see yourself doing? Are you going to try to become the next woman in the NFL? What are your plans?
If there's anything the last year taught me is to keep options open. It's I definitely have learned to not set my sights on one thing, and mostly because I know I'm capable of doing a lot of different things and wearing a lot of different hats. So definitely keeping my options open. But last February, right before everything shut down, I was invited to go to the NFL Women's Careers Forum that was held in Indianapolis during the draft. And I was able to meet a lot of really incredible women working in the NFL now, and coaches and GMs. And now I have a network of people through that. And I have been keeping in touch with them. And it's been hard because a lot of their jobs are year long kind of thing. So there aren't many summer internships that the NFL does, but I've been keeping in contact with different NFL people. But again, options open. I'm going to do the best I can to find what I want to do, but also I know that I'm capable of doing a lot of different things.
That is so cool. So again, we will wish you all the best in that. We'll definitely be keeping our eye on you. All right, last question before we move to our last segment. You and I talked about this before we came on board. What's one Coach Morrison story that you can share that might bring a smile to both of our faces?
So besides being an incredible football coach, Coach Morrison was also the advisor for student government at Francis Parker. And I was in student government all 4 years of high school, and I was the president my senior year. So he and I got to work really closely, several hours a day from student government to football. But one of my favorite memories of him is every year our student government goes on a retreat before school starts to get our bearings and kind of have some time all together to plan. And there's a lot that has to get done there. You have to cook all your meals, you're kind of living like a real person for a few days. And I remember we were going out to buy meals, and we got an obscene amount of bacon, like way too much bacon for like 20 people. And Coach Mo made fun of me for the rest of my time in high school for getting so much bacon. And ever since then, every article about bacon or anything with the word bacon in it, he sends it to me or he tags me in it on Facebook. And it's just this running joke now that really started from almost nothing, but it's just, that's the kind of person he is. He makes these little connections and these little meaningful things with people that shouldn't be meaningful. Bacon is not special at all, but he remembers that kind of moment. And every time he sees something, he's like, oh, I think Jula would like that. And it really just warms my heart every time that I get a bacon Facebook post sent my way.
Now, see, if I was your head football coach, that would not have been unusual at all. I don't think you can ever have too much bacon. Okay, so very cool. Thanks for sharing that, and I know John will enjoy that. Well, Julia, this has really been cool spending some time with you, but we're not quite done. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're going to be looking at this from a slightly different perspective, but I think that's, good. You've seen some master coaches, some master athletic directors that work as a high school student and student athlete, and now at the collegiate level. So I'm going to ask you, you're going to send out a brand new rookie athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Jula Harrington's athletic director toolbox?
I would say the first one I can think of, and this is because of our Tufts athletic director, John Morris, who is an amazing man, genuine interest in sports. And that seems kind of obvious for an athletic director, but I remember one of the very first days of practice, my freshman year at Tufts, John Morris came out and just watched the whole practice and came out to the coaches and asked what they were doing. Oh, what plays are we running this year? What kind of defense are we doing? That genuine interest and care and attention to detail about what our team was doing made me feel so supported by him. And also in that first day, he recognized that I was someone he didn't know yet. So he came up to me and said, "Hey, I haven't seen you before. Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, hi, I'm Jula. I'm new here." But that genuine interest in the teams that you are in charge of, like, completely changed how I see an athletic director. They're not someone that just sits in an office and delegates things. Like, he was on the field and he really cared about our team. So that's absolutely one of them. Let's see. I think good communication as well. Again, like, all these seem obvious, but it really changes when you're working under someone who communicates with you professionally and sends out all of the memos and emails that you need, but also just normal human communication, just whenever seeing you, asking like, "Hey, how are you? How's your team doing this year?" "Oh yeah, great. Like, I saw their game the other day. That was awesome." Just being able to have conversations with people that you know and don't know, and making sure that you're communicating out to the general public as well about what your school and your teams are doing. That's absolutely one of them. And then for my third piece of the toolbox, it's tough. There's so many good options.
You've done a great job so far. I love your first 2. Yeah.
I think for the third one, I would say kindness. I think really that a lot of people in upper division jobs seem to lack kindness as they keep going through their positions, and you forget what it's like to be the little guy at some point. And kindness to strangers is a really important thing, and kindness to other teams that you're playing, and not being a bad leader when you're showing poor sportsmanship. I think being kind and expressing the message that kindness is a good thing and it's not weak to be nice to another person is a really kind of delicate trait to have, but it's one of the most important ones in my opinion.
I think you hit it out of the park. Love the sports, love your students, your coaches, your athletes, communicate with everyone, and be kind. It doesn't take any effort to be kind. Great, great stuff. Jula Harrington, thank you so much for being a guest on the Educational AD podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I had such a good time.
Well, we enjoyed hearing about you and about Tufts. All the best this coming season, and we're going to be watching for you. I think we'll be seeing you at that next level very soon. Okay? All the best.
I sure hope so. Thank you.
To our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are being uploaded to the Educational AD FIAAA YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD.